Uh, Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to my channel. If you are new to this channel, we discuss everything about Canada immigration, and I will also be talking about migrating to the US. That will be in future videos, but we are starting with migrating to Canada. As I introduced earlier, I used to be a very strong contributor to the topic of migrating to Canada on Naira land back in the days from 2016, I think. And if you want to check my moniker there, it is Jesus the Way. So for those who were on that topic at that time, they will remember the contribution. So today, I specifically want to talk about IELTS, how you can pass your IELTS. Don't forget, in my first video, I emphasized on the need to have, you know, on the need to be knowledgeable about what you are doing. So when I wrote IELTS 3 times, I first wrote it in 2014 December, if I remember very correctly. At that point in time, I think I felt I just needed 6.5 and all of that. So in a way, I didn't exactly prepare that much. So I went and then I had 6.5 in listening, 6.5 in reading, 7 in writing, 8 in speaking. It was much later when that result expired. It expired and I had to do it again. Then I knew that I had to put in more effort. But listening was a challenge. It was a challenge to me at that time, because at some point I may just discover, that as the recording is playing, my mind can just stray, and then I lose my train of thought. However, uh, at my second attempt, I was able to score. I had 7 in listening. I had 8.5 in reading. Yes, I had 8.5 in reading. I had 7.5 in writing, 7.5 in speaking. But the listening seems to be the issue, and that was because when it got to a particular segment, I discovered that the set of questions in that segment were not questions that I had practiced before, and that threw me off my feet. And so I had to go do it again the third time, and then I had 8.0 in listening, 8.5 again in reading, and then I had 7 in speaking, 7 in writing, because I didn't prepare for those. I didn't prepare for those two. So what strategy did I use? Number one, I'll be talking about the resource that I focused on the most. Then we were using IELTS body, but then I decided to use IELTS LEAS. So for those who have done this exam a lot of times, they will let you know IELTS LEAS is it's top notch when it comes to preparing for the IELTS. It was very, 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 very useful for me, because I discovered that there are different type of questions, that they ask. And so my strategy for being able to pass the exam was constant practice. It was constant practice. So let's say I can take a particular, let's say listening, 40 questions listening. So I will do it without preparing, and then I'll see how many I will get. Then I'll go back to do it again. Excuse me. I'll go back to do it again until I am very sure that I'm going to get like 40 over 40. So that was my strategy. What that did for me was that it made my mind to concentrate fully, on the exam. So you need high concentration. You need high concentration if you are going to be able to get the kind of score that you need. I remember, some people did it like 11, 12 times before they could get what they were looking for. But and I must also say that if your English was never really good up until the time you want to do it, the truth is that IELTS is a true test of your level of proficiency in English. You cannot hide as it is. It will always bring out how good your English is or how bad. So for some, they have to really, really, really take extra lessons, to be able to do it. So what I did was that, for example, listening was about the biggest challenge. So what I did was to study the kind of questions that they set, and then I looked at the pattern. And when I looked at the pattern, after I have practiced, I will go back to it and do it again. And then I began to develop tips to master the different kind of questions that they bring. I remember there's one that they will draw a diagram and they can label different parts of that diagram. Let's say is the uh, floor plan of a house. They can label A to E. Now, when they start the recording, you start hearing the narrator, describing the different places on that diagram. But what I noticed was that sometimes he will be giving description that is close to where B is labeled, and he has not spoken about where A is. But all of a sudden, you will see them go back to where A is. So eventually, I discovered that they will not give the answer or read out the answer to B without first reading out the answer to A. So that happened because I was able to discover that because I constantly practice. So they do that to make you get confused. But then I discovered that the answer to B will never come before the answer to A. So when you see a diagram like that, identify what that particular area, identify what will let you know when they have begun to talk about that area, and know that they will not talk about the answer to B before they talk about the answer, to A. There was another one that is like a table, so that the table will have an heading. It will have an heading, so that what you are waiting to hear when the recording is playing is a word that fits in that's like a synonym to that heading. So that's what you are waiting to hear. That was the strategy, that I used. And at the end of the day, by God's grace, I was able to score 8 in listening, which is like 35, 36 over 40. For reading, you discover that the passages towards the end are usually very long. So I remember the first time I wrote the IELTS, I had done the initial questions and I thought I was very fast. So I stood up to go and use the washroom. And by the time I came back and I saw the passages towards the end, I was under pressure, So I discovered that also because after the initial experience, I was practicing, I had known what to expect. So you have to be very, very fast with your time when you are doing the reading aspect, because the passages they will give you towards the end are usually very long. So you have to spend less time at the beginning so that you will not be under pressure at the end. For writing, there are two segments. There's one you have to write 150 words. There's one you have to write 250 words. The tips that IELTS Liz gave me was to always write more than the number of words that is required. You have to write more than the number of words that is required. That's number one. Number two, if you are writing about a particular point, whatever you have to say about that point, ensure you exhaust it in the paragraph where you started that point. Don't let whatever you are writing about that point, don't let it spill over from one paragraph to the other. Number two, the way by which you can count the number of words by which you can know if you have written up to 150, for example, is to count like the first three or first four lines. Count the number of words that you are writing per line. check the average. So the average will let you know what the number of words, well, the number of words that you are writing per line. Then divide it by 150. That will tell you the number of lines you are supposed to write. But don't forget, we said that you have to write more than the number of words. So you are looking at maybe writing extra 2 lines. So that way, you can know where to stop, and you don't go over way too much, and you don't write lesser than what is expected of you. So count the number of words for the first 4 lines, and then do an average. And then when you get the average, divide it by 150 or divide it by 250 for the second part. That will tell you the number of lines you are to write. You can then write extra 1 or 2, because you are to write, but you should write based on the tips that IELTS Liz gave. You should write more than the number of words. For speaking, just put your mind at rest. They start asking you, it's not necessarily an interview, as such. You just They start asking you the very, very easy questions like your name, where you are working, and all of that. So that will put your mind at rest. By the time they start asking you, as a matter of fact, sometimes it is based on the answer you are giving them that they themselves will be developing questions for you. So let your mind be at rest. Don't be jittery at any point in time. If to build your confidence, you can watch YouTube videos on how people on how which will be sample videos on how to answer IELTS. I mean, how to do the speaking aspect. You will see how people respond, to questions. So when I listen to it, that kind of builds my confidence. Like they say in Nigeria, I hope with these few points of mine, I've been able to convince and not confuse you that you can do well and you can pass the IELTS exam very well. But one more thing is that it appears these days you are able to write CELPIP. If you are listening to me from Nigeria, if you are from other countries, check if you can write CELPIP. CELPIP is the Canadian English Language Test, and from the feelers I've gathered, it's easier than IELTS. So you might also want to consider writing that instead of IELTS. In all you do, or whichever one you choose to write, my prayer for you is that you will pass it, and you will pass it excellently. Please don't forget, always gone for 10, 10, 10, 10 in CELPIP. If it's IELTS, 8.5 in listening, 8.0 in reading. Both of them translate to 37, 38 over 40. So it tells you how well you need to prepare. 7.5 in writing, 7.5 in speaking. Thank you.